well, we don't just focus on the reporting, which is like what everybody wants time tracking for, but we also go for user experience.
But Jira does have a built-in time tracker already built in, right? And it has always not blown my mind, but it's always made me like question it a little bit. If Jira has this built in, why are external apps so popular?
After it, we needed some reporting capabilities for it, not just time tracking functionality. And eventually it became a whole project, but still it was basically a side project, a bench project in our company.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Summer of Atlassian. Today I have a couple of members from the EverIT team, and we're going to be talking about their marketplace listings and their apps and all the different things that they are involved in today. So Attila and Daniel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting
Hello,
us.
everyone.
So where in the world are you guys at?
EverIT or EverIT, we actually pronounce it both ways.
Both ways.
Just to confuse everybody. So EverIT is started in Hungary 16 years ago, and currently it has offices in two Hungarian cities, so Budapest, which is the capital, and Debrecen, which is on the eastern side, and the second largest town population-wise. But we also are fully remote, so we have colleagues all over Hungary, and also I have joined EverIT from Berlin, Germany, and now we also have a colleague who is in Canada. So we have expanded a bit in the past 2-3 years, I would say.
Awesome. And Attila, where are you at?
I'm from Debrecen, and I'm working here from the start, from 2013. From Hungary.
From Hungary. Yeah, this is one of my favorite things. I think I'm starting to sound a lot like a broken record on my interviews here, but one of my favorite things about the Atlassian ecosystem is just how diverse everybody is, right? Like there's so many different players from so many different parts of the world that just come together to build this ecosystem. And it's amazing that we get an opportunity. Daniel, I know you and I got a chance to meet each other physically in Vegas a couple months ago now. It's been 2 months.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just great to see the just different ideas from folks, just different parts of the world that I normally would never been exposed to, right? Southern California boy. I don't know that I've ever told you this joke or if you've seen it or heard it, but I've said it on this channel many times, right? But I was born and raised, nurtured in Southern California, in LA, in Los Angeles, right? And our view of the world is really interesting because we have the Pacific Ocean, then it's LA right away, and then it's Las Vegas, and then there's like land, and then you get to the Atlantic Ocean, and like that's it. Like the rest of the United States doesn't even exist for us. So it's for me, it's been such interesting experience to just see this global impact of this company or of this ecosystem, I should say.
Yes, and if I can get into it, I also enjoy that, like Eastern Europe, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic. I think it's like punching above our weight as a region inside the Atlassian world, because we have so many large solution partners and marketplace partners, even from Hungary as well.
Yeah. The name EverIT, does it mean something? Does it have a significant value to you guys?
I heard a few different versions since I joined the company. I'm not sure. So basically, it means EverIT,
For like forever.
Forever, yeah.
Okay.
Or it refers to I think French. I'm not sure, for spring, because we started as a Java mainly developed in Java and in Spring, and changed it to GI later. So yeah, I'm not sure.
That's an interesting name, right? It's I always find it. I wouldn't want to say funny, but I find it interesting the names, right? Because we're just talking about this geodiversity of how separated we are, but like forever IT makes so much sense in the US, right? Like it's a very plausible, very, I can almost relate to it because have you guys ever heard of the song Hotel California
Yes.
by the Eagles? You know how like once you
Yes.
check in, you can never check out. And so IT is kind of like that, right? Like once you join the IT world, it's not something that lets you out. Like you can't usually leave the IT world, right? You're kind of just stuck in there forever. And again, it makes so much perfect sense for me. I find the name very, very relatable, but I can't imagine that in Hungary you guys have the same translation or the same inspirational song to feel like you're trapped forever in IT. Oh, you guys are something else. You guys have quite a few apps in the marketplace. Why don't you walk us through the thought process there? Like, are you guys trying to do like a numbers game? Where do you get your inspiration for releasing an app into the Atlassian ecosystem?
When I first joined the company, there was already inbuilt solution for time tracking. Basically, there was a Jira plugin already. Before that, our company uses the Anuko time tracking software. So the early stages are quite similar, the UI and the experience with that app. But since the company shifted to using Jira very early on, so when I joined, they already use it for years now. They needed a built-in solution in Jira. So basically, and we have the developer capacity, so they basically implemented the same time tracking solution that they used as a third-party app. And after it, we needed some reporting capabilities for it, not just time tracking functionality. And eventually, it became a whole plugin project. But still, it was basically a side project, a bench project in our company. And there was no dedicated resources on it. Only the between projects, the developers can work on it. But we actually really enjoyed it. So later, I became the PM of this time tracking app, this time tracking plugin. And at 2015, we released it as a free app on the marketplace. So after 3 years, the marketplace started, the Atlassian marketplace. And well, it became, for us at least, it became a success. After the first 500 installations, we were very happy, and we see the business opportunity in it, of course. So 2 years later, we made it a paid via Atlassian app, and this is how the company started its its journey as an Atlassian vendor. Yeah, and after it, there was a lot of experiments, a lot of changes on the Atlassian house side as well. So yeah, but the current focus still on our time tracker app, but we shifted from server and data center platform to cloud and try to follow the leader Atlassian, who is always pushing us to the cloud platform. Currently, we have two apps for the cloud, but this was our first app for Jira Cloud. Yeah, and it's basically, I treat it as my child after this many years. So I'm very defensive about it and very proud, of course.
Yeah.
And we have big plans and a big roadmap for it. And we also implemented 2 more apps in the meantime for server and data center, both for Jira. One is Issue Score, which is basically a prioritization tool for product managers or product managers, but it can be also used for risk management. We haven't implemented it for the cloud because, well, it was too late. There were already some competitors on this field. And I mean, the feature set is quite limited for this prioritization tool. And we also have the Epic Roadmap app, which is basically a simple Epic-based road mapping tool for small teams based on boards and sprints.
Yeah.
And our latest
Venture.
shot, yeah, it's the license optimizer app, both for Jira and for Confluence, which is basically allow you to create floating licensing for Jira and Confluence. It's quite an interesting field, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Such a diverse portfolio there of different apps. But the time tracking one, obviously, your biggest heavy hitter, right? The
Yeah.
time tracking one's
Yes.
your bread and butter, the one that everybody's using. When I think of time tracking, right, usually there's a lot of players in that space, right? So how do you guys stay competitive and kind of keep pulling out? Because what is it, over 2,500 installs, like almost 3,000 installs? That's not a small number, right? That's a significant number, a significant marketplace or ownership, right, of what's out there. And so how do you guys stay competitive in the time tracking space?
Good question. Danny, do you want to add something?
How do you not, and don't
Yeah.
release any, proprietary trade secrets that are going to get us fired either.
Yeah. So like you said, I think the time tracking segment is one of the most competitive in the marketplace. Like last time I checked, there were over 300 apps just in this category. And I like to think that we are in the top 10. Obviously, there are big players, Tempo, for example, who we don't catch up to, I would say. But I think that just inside time tracking, there can be niches. And our niche, I would say, is that we try to be we don't just focus on the reporting, which is like what everybody wants time tracking for, but we also go for user experience, because like we usually think of it as, so you go to a dentist and you want to have a, the injection they give you before. So you want to be the best one, and you want it to be as painless as possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because you mentioned Tempo, right? And I didn't want to turn this into the Tempo show, but Tempo is one, it's expensive, right? Like it's out of reach for a lot of people. And I think they're a huge business that I think have lost a little focus into putting the customer first. They recently, well, a year ago, acquired Custom Charts for Jira, right? They're one of the best apps that I thought was out there.
Yeah.
Maybe the fact that Chris Cook was my very first sponsor might bias me a little bit, but my heart was torn when they got rid of that first free for the first 10 users, right? Like that. I think allows so many apps to flourish at the beginning, because it makes it accessible, right? And I think that's part of the heart of Jira and Atlassian from its inception, was accessibility to the people, right? Like it's free. And so I think when I look at Tempo right now, it's kind of like a bitter taste in my mouth, right? So not necessarily something that I can even afford, and yet too, like and so it's interesting to see, like you said, right, hundreds of different apps that are in that time tracking space, but huge demand for it. Because like even on my videos, the time tracking videos that I have out there, like they perform really, really well. But the one thing that I have not been able to solve, or that I have been able to see, and I'm just kind of curious to get your guys' perspective, a lot of the big questions that I get, and I think even as I look through my comments and just feedback that I get from the viewers, is that of like resource planning and allocation. I think that is like a really, really tough bug to solve, because it's not just a matter of tracking time, but being able to like thoughtfully plan out your work. So when you said that you have like your epic planner, it kind of like, I was like, that's interesting, because you kind of have some of that resource planning, right? But so any thoughts on jumping into this resource allocation space, or anything that you guys have like thought of already and you're like not worth it or something?
Definitely worth it, but we, to be honest, did not touch that field yet. It's what you said. It's quite a big field and a complex field. It was a hot topic, and I think it's a hot topic, but it was a hot topic in the Atlassian community events as well for at least 2 years back, 3 years back now. And the companies how the companies handle these resource planning is quite diverse and quite complex, and I think it's very hard to. It's my thinking, at least. Maybe I'm not. Not true. I'm not. I think it's very hard to provide a general solution for this that will be good for everyone. So I'm not saying it's not possible or you can't provide tools for these, because obviously there are on the marketplace, even Tempo has. But
Yeah, but they charge you another arm and another leg
yeah,
for that
yeah.
part.
Yeah. Yeah, but we still not finished with the time tracking part with our app, I think. So we are not focusing on the resource planning yet, but it's definitely an important topic.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes, plus,
go ahead, Daniel.
yeah. So like we already saw some other competitors, not just Tempo, who expanded their like app portfolio in the direction of resource planning, and I'm not sure it's. Well, I mean, I don't see their numbers, only the install numbers, but it feels like there is a huge gap between how they could convert their time tracking user base to a capacity planning user base, and to me that signals that the need is kind of niche with time tracking, because that's just like one field that you want time tracking to do.
That's such an interesting insight then that you guys have, right? Because like I said, it just doesn't jive with what I'm seeing. Because at least for me, when I was exploring, when I'm exploring for time tracking, right? Time tracking is just one element of it, right? It's taking somebody's time that they spent on a particular task and having a method to put it in, right? And record it, if you will. That's one aspect of it. And then you have, like you said earlier, the reporting aspect of it, which is, okay, so you got all this time tracked and logged. Let's take a look at it, right? let's put it in a way that we can drive some insight. And so again, that's very critical. I think a lot of companies have a lot of significant value. To me, it was surprising, right? I've been genuinely surprised by how many people have a demand for time tracking. Mainly because like I've grown up not time tracking within Jira. Like I've grown up Jira being my task, like assignment, right? Like the work I need to do. But my time has always been like in a more HR centric system.
Mhm.
And so why don't we talk about that for a second? Where do you guys see yourself like positioned with respect to your time tracking app being more like a central, like enterprise wide time tracker versus very specific to teams? Like, do you see that level of insight or information from your user base? In other words,
Definitely.
do you have users out that are outside of Jira that are depending on your app for time tracking, or does everything have to be centered and revolve around Jira for it to make sense?
Mhm.
I would. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Go on, Daniel.
Yeah, so I would say we see both. So we definitely see that, and I think that this is where our app shines because of the user friendliness, is that lots of companies just use Jira and just track their time, and then they don't want their reporting in Jira they have ERP systems, or they just need it for HR purposes and they just want like an easy workload editor, and then they will just export the data out of Jira anyways, or set up integrations, and then yeah, they will just go to an HR software to see their timesheets. So we definitely see those.
I think task management and working on task and time tracking is tied together very strongly. So usually when you are working with Jira task and you eventually you will live in Jira and you will want to do everything in your Jira, even the HR and marketing and every task besides software development. So it's became somehow natural to manage your time tracking in Jira as well. We have some customers who came from different third-party apps, from Toggle or Cookify, if I can mention them, and just yeah, they basically told me that it just feels natural because Jira will be the source of truth, and you want all of your information there, even resource planning, even time tracking, in some cases cost tracking as well, or billing, and you can export these data from Jira and from other critical systems to a business intelligence tool and create your own reports. But usually you want your stuff and data in one place, and you want to handle them as conveniently and easily as possible. So I think it's very integrated in Jira, the time tracking topic.
Yeah. No, and it's the part that, and maybe I don't know if you guys are comfortable answering this question, so feel free to skip it if you don't like it, but I'll ask it because it's been a question that I've always wondered, right? Because in case you don't know, well, I mean, the viewer, obviously you two know because this is your space, right? But Jira does have a built-in time tracker already built in, right? And it has always not blown my mind, but it's always made me like, question it a little bit. Like, if Jira has this built in, why are external apps so popular? Like, what are your guys' thoughts about that? Like, why is your app way more popular than the default? Like, why would people pay you versus the
We
free?
won't skip this question because this, as Daniel said, this is where we shine. So the Jira built-in time tracking solution is basically only provide a feature, a function, or an option to log your time on the issue.
And that's it.
And that's it. Yes.
And you were done.
Yeah. And there's no additional easy of life or quality features, for example, searching for issues or move your workloads conveniently, or provide custom tags or metadata, meta information with your workloads. And obviously, the reporting options also missing from Jira. You have project reports, but you don't have
nothing with the time. Yeah, you literally can just input time, and that's it. Like it literally.
Yeah, you have. I think you have two or three time tracking reports for projects as well, but the scope is only for that project, and basically they are not that customizable. They doing one stuff, and that's all. So yeah, and our app, and basically all of the time tracking apps, but especially our app, provides a very convenient way for the user to not just log their time on an issue, but manage their daily work, check their previous day work or previous week work, check if they have gaps that should be filled, check if how many overtime they have for that month, easily manipulate, edit, delete, or move their workloads. And of course, provide a tool for the managers to audit their teams, audit their performance, audit their time tracking, create exports for billing purposes, or yeah, basically that's. So I think that's why time tracking tools are that popular, because there are the minimum set of features and options.
But it's too minimal.
But it's too minimal. And you don't believe how many users, how many customers I talked with, and they said that they only know this option. They have some, unfortunately, we had some customers who never opened our daily time tracking dedicated page, even the calendar or the timeline. We have both because they so customized for that issue logging experience on each issue which is very not so convenient and very troublesome for them. So they were very, very, very happy when they find out that there's a place, there's a page, there's a dedicated option where they they are able to manage their daily progress, their daily work, and yes.
And I think that's such a critical part because I kind of wanted to pivot a little bit into that, right? Because I think Daniel and both of you have been echoing this over and over and over, right? Which is that user experience. And I think when you tie a tool to something like Jira, where it's expected to have a ticket for everything, but not everything has a ticket, right? There's meetings and there's overhead stuff, and there's so many variables to our day-to-day work that it's difficult to always tie every little thing that I'm doing back to a ticket. And I like that you guys have like this temporary issue-less ability to input. So what was your guys' inspiration for coming out with something like that?
It's easy to answer. The idea was come from one of our developers or some of our developers, because they usually working daily in the idea integrated development.
So the $1,000,000 question: are your developers? Do you guys use your own tooling?
I was sometimes. So they working on the developer environment. They usually never even open the Jira. I mean, they open the issue they are working on and see the description. And sometimes they have to switch contexts on daily basis, or many times on one day. But they told me that the easiest and fastest way was for them to open a notebook and just making notes about what they are working on. And sometimes they remember the issue key or the task, or sometimes not. But overall, at the end of the day, they have only notes. And retrospectively, they have to fill out their day and search for these issues and fill out their working hours. So this gave me the idea that we can provide an option built in our time tracking tool for them, and of course for our other customers as well.
How do you guys see the role of like Robo and stuff playing in your guys' company? Have you guys started looking into it? Are you excited for it? Are you gonna plan on building something for it?
I think it's very interesting, the Robo. Our colleague Gergo is very into the AI field. He can talk about it, but I think we definitely have plans as a company to experiment and build the AI into our strategy, but we don't have any actual plans that we can share right now.
Because I would find it very interesting, right? Because the reason I bring it up is the scenario that you described with your developer. I see that everywhere across the Atlassian ecosystem, right? Like the human element, right? At the end of the day, and it's the same thing, not just with time tracking, but Jira as a whole, right? I do trainings all the time about how to use Jira. And I tell people, I'm like, if I had to summarize like 60 seconds, how do you use Jira? Update your status, right? And I'm assuming that if you guys were to summarize how do you use your app, it would be enter your time, right? But that fundamental, just like literally like the most simple 1-2 click activity is something that we just inherently don't enjoy doing, right? We don't enjoy updating our statuses. We don't enjoy putting in our time spent on a particular task and whatnot, right? And so this is kind of where I would like think like somebody like a robo, right, an Atlassian assistant, if you will, could come in and maybe you can type in and say, "Hey, Robo, I spent 30 minutes on this one today. Can you go figure it out? Like, figure out what I worked on, but I spent 30 minutes on it, or I spent 2 hours on it." And
yes.
figure it out.
So it's a good idea, and actually we experimented with exactly with this use case. but I think we are not alone. I think we are not alone, and many of our competitors are thinking about this use case.
I always find it like just very. Again, I feel like broken records, right? Like, but I find it interesting, right? I'm curious, right? Like how you like these companies, like you, right? There's millions and millions of ideas out there, and I'm assuming you gotta be curious enough to like test all these different ideas, but there's gotta be like a formula you guys have to say this is gonna be successful or this is just another not worth the squeeze. Do you guys have like a bar or a set criteria of like this is something we're gonna work on versus like resource planning?
We kind of have, but going back to the to Rovo especially. So yeah, we experimented stuff, but lately and like even more and more we see like marketplace partners like us. We do an idea or we do a feature, and it will be way easier for Atlassian to do it, and so have to wait until Atlassian does it with, for example, Rovo. So I think it will be easier for us to like hop on Rovo's capabilities, beta rep with integration points than for every time checker marketplace partner, for example, to develop our own AI solution.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's also one of my biggest worries. I know coming out of Team 23, as soon as we walked out of the the keynote, I looked around the expo hall. I'm like, a good amount of these apps, like everybody had like AI in there. And then this year there was not a lot of AI based companies, right? Like there's a lot of companies that are now folding in AI, but I think if you look at the landscape in 2023, there was a lot of companies that were like, let me bring AI to Jira because it doesn't exist. And then walk out of the keynote and they're like, well, AI now exists.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of those business plans had to be rethought because this year I didn't see a single company that was like AI introduction, but rather leveraging the power of AI to do something else. So I thought it was interesting, like because Atlassian cannibalizes a lot of ideas or products really that just Atlassian is like I'll just either acquire you or fold it into the main source code, which is mind blowing to me how they never. And I don't want to jinx you guys, right, or any of the time tracking ones, but it just blows my mind that Atlassian has like. I'm trying to think of like who at Atlassian was like, let's implement time tracking. They're like, cool, let's add it in there, and let's stop like 1/100th of the way in. Like, being able to put in the time doesn't do me any good. And it makes me wonder because reporting in general is Atlassian's like weakness, right? Like any kind of reporting in Jira, not even time tracking alone, right? But just reporting in general, like it's some of the worst capabilities of the Atlassian folks. I don't know what you guys experiences with that, but try building a dashboard and those things feel like 20 years old. Speaking of which, does your app support like gadgets and widgets for like dashboards and stuff to build, or are your reports kind of independent inside your app?
Yes. Time tracking app has 2 dashboard gadgets, and usually, issue score is also as well. So, but mainly you are focusing on the dedicated reporting page, not on the dashboard gadgets. It's interesting what you said. I mean, I think Atlassian built the Atlassian marketplace for this purpose. I mean, if there's somebody or this vendor that can do better than them, it's not a problem for them basically, because the vendor solve a customer problem for that field. And I think it's an understandable decision from Atlassian. And what we see, they acquired those strategic vendors and products lately, and build and focusing those features that are in the latest Jira and Confluence competitors, I think, on that field. So yeah, and what is not business or crucial business or strategic point for them, and there's an app that can do better, why they bother to provide put any resource on it.
Right. Yeah. So one thing that I've had this conversation with an Atlassian staff member before, but that is like, you got to imagine that within the Atlassian developers, right, and their product managers and whatnot, that they have like, again, a billion ideas, right? Some of them see the day of light. We got Rovo, we got Confluence whiteboards, which I think is an actual real idea that they had, not something they acquired, because the databases they acquired from like K15T or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like asking Atlassian, I'm like, is there like a list that you guys publish that says like, here's through our own research, Atlassian, me being Atlassian, right? Here's some functionalities that our customers want, but they're just not on our roadmap, right? They're just not something that we're going to invest energy or resources into, but we know that there's some demand. Does anybody want to build them, right? And I think that'd be such a cool list to get published, because it would spawn like entrepreneurs like you guys, right? Like marketplace vendors to go, oh, we'll give it our spin, we'll give it our take, and see what comes out of it, right? But I just, because in the defense world and here in the United States, that's kind of how planes are built, right? The government's like, I need a plane that can do X, Y, Z, and everybody, all the marketplace vendors, they'll be like, we'll do it for $1 million, we'll do it for $10 million, right? And they bid for the money, but somebody has the original idea and then goes and implements it, like, because they know that there's a demand for it, right? Because when you guys, I think Attila, you said at the beginning, right? When your app got 500 apps, that was like the aha moment, right? Like they're like, oh, yeah, we're onto something, right? But as a marketplace vendor, you're kind of taking a huge risk, because you don't know if it's something that is needed or that is wanted, right? You're kind of just putting something out there. I would argue that it'd be so much easier if Atlassian's like, here's a list of the top 100 things people want in Jira, but we don't have time to do it. Somebody go build it.
Well, technically there is well, I mean, I would love to see that list if it existed, but what we have instead at the moment is Atlassian publishes like search phrases from the marketplace, and like how popular a search phrase is. So I would say that could give us an indication. And sometimes
it's a little something, right? And where does time tracking fall on that list?
It's not at the top. And
it's not at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, due to this, you mentioned that you think and saw that how popular time tracking is. What do you think about the new marketplace experience, both the new categories and the new UI?
So when I go into the Atlassian marketplace, I'm looking for a very specific solution, right?
You know the app name.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking in, right? I'm always doing the keyword research, right? Because I'm in the position where I'm working with a team. They have a problem, and I know that Jira can't fix it. So when I go to the Atlassian marketplace, I'm not going to like wander, and like I don't go to just see like, oh, what's new at the mall today, right? Like I'm not window shopping in that sense. of like, I'm just here because it's hot outside, I want free AC type of thing, but I'm there on a very specific mission. So what I don't typically hear or listen to a lot of the UI or changes there, because again, I'm there to just find a very specific time tracking app that's going to help me do a very specific thing within time tracking. But it's an interesting thing, right? Because I think having, for most people, I don't think I'm a most people normal person that when it comes to my interactions with Jira, right? But I think for most people, right, discoverability is a very necessary thing, right? Like, you really don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you need at that time. You're curious, and so anytime that Atlassian can make improvements to the UI to help find things a little bit easier for you, I think it's a really good win for everybody, right? You guys as vendors for discoverability for a potential customer, and for the customers for discoverability for a potential vendor to buy from, right?
Yes, these latest changes affects us vendors a bit more. My question behind my question was that they removed the time tracking category from the market.
See, that's not something I even. Again, I don't go into the categories. I literally just type into the search. I'll put like time tracking and see what comes back out the other end. But it's interesting for that is an interesting observation then, because an entire business can be eradicated by just one click.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Atlassian have like a lobbying type of environment where a group of marketplace vendors can come together and go, hey guys, like you killed our category.
We can mentor it.
Can you put it back, please?
I think they provide some opportunities for that.
So let's talk about that for a second though. Like, what, as a marketplace vendor, what kind of interactions or influences do you have within Atlassian for like changes to the marketplace and stuff like that?
So there is a partner. There is a partner page. Yeah. So in general, there is a partner page where Atlassian communicates to all the partners, and here I mean solution partners as well as marketplace partners. So that, and also there is the specifically for marketplace partners, the developer community, which is a bit similar, a bit different to the normal online community of Atlassian, because there they announce, yeah, and they announce lots of changes in advance, so marketplace partners have the chance to voice their concerns about some of the changes, and there are some very vocal marketplace partners who we always see. Yes, and other than that, marketplace partners have technical partner managers, but Atlassian recently made changes there, so right now only Platinum marketplace partners have a dedicated partner manager, and the Gold and Silver and the other partners cannot. We can only communicate to Atlassian via support tickets, for example, or go to events.
I have a video that I made maybe like 2 years ago. I was doing a pretty important thing in Jira and I needed help. And it's one of those things where like I need to call somebody because I got to write a novel of my problem. Like, it was a big problem. And that's one of my least favorite things about Atlassian. Like, I get why you do it, but at the end of the day, man, not having access to an actual human sometimes, it can be quite annoying. Sorry, Daniel, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
I think I finished. So
I wanted to ask you then. So clearly, then this is a problem, right? Like, I think if I was in your guys' spot, right, it'd be like, hey, we need a little bit more control over our discoverability, right? How do people find us? Which is, I'm assuming, Daniel, probably what keeps you up at night, right? Is how do you market your app, right? So how much dependency do you try to do outside of the Atlassian marketplace versus inside?
Well, yeah, that's a hard topic for me. Yeah, so like the biggest channel is the Atlassian marketplace, and discoverability there is huge. So every time Atlassian changes something, for example, the stuff pick system, the changes to the categories, so that has like sometimes double-digit changes to, yeah. So that's huge. Also, but this is like credit where credit's due. The community, for example, online community, is a great place to market our apps. So that's good. Other than that, we are left to our own devices in terms of anything outside. So social campaigns, we only have a few guidelines from Atlassian in terms of like how we can mention Jira and Atlassian's keywords. Yes, and also in a sense that's also good that the event space is now completely built out around Atlassian. So we have the huge events, a few each year, so Team and Unleash and stuff like that.
Do you guys actively go to those and just try to be present?
We started a few years ago, but haven't been that active before. And the other good thing about Atlassian in terms of this marketing is that Atlassian is really supportive of the events around it. So like, well, I became a community leader last year, so maybe I'm biased in this, but that's huge. And for example, before that, I have seen similar events organized by Salesforce called Trailblazer meetups. And the way Atlassian supports these events are better, at least in my eyes, and it's worth going to them. And like literally, there are events every day that you could go if you had all the money in the world and all the time.
Do you guys partner with other solution partners? I didn't even know this was a thing. I just recently learned at Team 24 this year that your big partners like your C primes and the people that provide solutions, right, that are out there helping people with their Jira problems, not the vendors like you, but literally there's people that don't make any apps but just help people with problems. I learned, because again I didn't know, that people like you, right, vendors will partner up with the solution partners so that when they're in architecting solutions for them, they're like, oh, you're going to need some time tracking capabilities too. Here's the one that we would recommend. Is that something that's actively part of your guys' campaigns?
Yes, more and more so. So that's why last year we like EverIT hired like a dedicated partner manager to like focus and champion these efforts.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you're a solution partner,
call Daniel. Daniel's looking for
yeah. No. Type Maximni in LinkedIn search.
Oh, you guys are funny. We're entering here the last few minutes of this chat, and I wanted to talk about something, Daniel, that you gave to me. You gave me a little board game, and at first, it didn't make sense. But now that I look at your background, and I see a tremendous amount of board games in your background, it makes a tremendous amount of sense. So why don't you kind of walk me through the little board game and explain to the world how did you guys create your very first or very own time tracking board game?
Yeah, so that has been the fruit of my
grab mine real quick.
Yeah.
The time track.
Yeah, so ever since I came to EverIT, I try to push gamification on Otas, and he made some successful efforts in pushing me back. But with this, I finally
who came up
pushed
with the
through.
game? Did you create this?
No. It's an existing board game. It's
Okay.
it's a reteam of an existing board game. So if you like look at the bottom, you can see that it's based on Orchard, 9 cards of Tuck game.
9 card, yeah, by Mark Tuck.
Yeah.
And it's
So
really
this is
cool.
an existing. This is an existing board game which I was aware of, and because of I have this huge interest in board games, and I've been going to some cons and meet publishers and stuff, so I could reach out to the original designer and ask for a permission of the reteam. And the original game is about you are trying to collect fruits, different types of fruits at an orchard, so apples, pears, and stuff like that. And we had some brainstorming on how we could turn this into a productivity related game, and that's how it came that you are collecting work logs, and because our app has you can add custom tags to like mark your work logs as like admin stuff, meetings, billable, non-billable, things like that.
Right.
So it made sense to pair the categories, like the largest categories, to the amount of stuff that you collect. And in the end, this is just a puzzle game that you can play alone and try to beat your own score between each round.
I think this is such a sorry, I've been fighting a cold for the last 4 or 5 days now. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think this is a great example of a company that takes something that their employees are passionate about, right? And then mixing it with their everyday lives, right? And first of all, thank you for the gift. I think it was an amazing gift. Board games for me have been very primitive. And when I look at this, it's not very primitive at all, right? Because I grew up with like Monopoly and stuff like that. But that world of board games is something that I've never really been exposed to. But it's an interesting, like I said, it's an interesting take of being able to again almost marry these two different worlds, right? And really create something a little bit more unique and something that I just very creative. I'll sum it up with that. And I haven't had a chance to play with my family yet, but something I definitely want to do. We have our family game night every Friday night, and so we'll definitely. I gotta pull it out of my office and make it down. In fact, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put it in the family game night area so that we look at it, because my kids are just not exposed to these types of board games, right? Like when I look at the things in your background, right? Like these are the ones that are really a little bit more advanced, is what I'll call them.
Yeah.
But definitely interesting. So great story on this, and I'm assuming there's nowhere you got to know somebody to have one of these. Like I don't know, assuming you guys don't sell these.
No. It's like we only made 50 copies
50, so
because of.
I wish you would have told me. I would have gotten it signed or something.
No, you should send it to the designer lives in England if you need it signed. So that's his idea. I just made the connection to the game to the Jira world.
Well, it's really cool.
It was definitely the unique, one of the uniquest and coolest swag, I think, when we bring it to the Atlassian Day.
I think again it's very important, right? Because it's very memorable. It's very personalized, right? If anybody has ever been in a call with Daniel, like it just clicks and makes sense. Because Daniel, I've been in calls with you before, but maybe the background was blurred or something, but I just never saw it, right? I never paid attention.
Yeah.
But now I feel the sense of connection between the time tracker app, EverIT, and Daniel, and the card game. Like it's the whole thing that I think just adds to that level of how do we stand out in a very not polluted, but crowded marketplace, right? And you know, just stand out a little bit, right? Because I'm gonna go try out the time tracker app because Daniel gave me his cool. That is pretty unique. So, anyways, guys, thank you so much for participating here. Getting a chance here to chat a little bit about your app and how you guys make some decisions. Were very, very insightful today. I wish you guys the best of luck. Think about that resource planning. I only tell you because it's the biggest question I always get. Everybody always wants to know, like, how do we plan our resources better? I was like, I don't know, but Jira doesn't do it. And I haven't seen an app that does it good either. So I just never have a good answer for people. But anyways, guys,
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Having us. Next time you can tell a story about the Halo helmets behind you.
I got 30 seconds. Yeah, I love Halo. I grew up playing Halo when it came out in 2001, and it's one of the things that just it represents that. It's more of who the Master Chief represents for me, right? And it's one of my favorite games and one of the ones that I grew up playing with the most. Now, Mark Cruz, I don't know if you know Mark Cruz at all from Atlassian. He's big on teamwork. Yeah, he's really, really big on teamwork. And so we were actually just having a discussion yesterday on the impacts of like something like Halo, a competitive yet cooperative video game where you come together to play a campaign, right? And so Halo was really one of the first games out there that allowed for this online multiplayer campaign, not just like kill each other, but like cooperatively as a team beat the game together. And it's just such a good reminder of like leadership and teamwork and just, you know, being also awesome because the Master Chief is one of my favorite characters in the world. But we're really harnessing the power of like coming together on a mission to solve a problem, right? So that's kind of why I keep them there, other than the fact that I love them. I wish you could see my entire Toy Story collection I have up on the top.
Well, maybe you need to do a gamification summer.
I think so. I think about gamification quite a lot. I think it's one of the best ways to learn. It's one of the best ways to turn something that's kind of boring and bland into something that's exciting and fun, and that you have a reason and a purpose to want to do it, but not very creative. This is why I was like, I'm applauding you for this, because like, even though you're kind of giving your credit where the credit's due, right? But it's things like that where it's just like, never in a million years would I have thought of doing it, right? Like, it's just the gamification though is just very, very critical. I think if you guys can make a gamified version of like time tracking, like I was watching this TikTok this week about this lady who's like, I told my kids first one to talk, the first one, the last one to wake up gets $10, and the kids were asleep until like 10 a.m. and she's enjoying her summer vacation. But if there was a way to like reward or gamify time tracking so that you incentivize people in a gaming way to actually put their time in, like that would be revolutionary.
I always push it back, as Daniel said, because gamification is if you're doing it good, gamification could help you. I agree, but you can do it quite cheaply, and it's sometimes, and most of the time, what I see, there's no actual benefit. That's why I'm pushing back, because if I do gamification, sometimes for time tracking, I want to do it good, as good as possible.
There's a balance, right? Because it is a professional productivity world, right? So I don't think that we've cracked gamification in the world of productivity yet.
I think so,
yeah. I think we still have this like negative connotation of like, oh my gosh, we can't have fun at work, because if we are, we're slacking off. Right? So maybe that's what it is. But I think from a team building perspective, like having some fun way for keeping your team accountable to putting in their time would be something worth exploring in the long run. But anyways, guys, again, we're over time, so thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on, and just thank you.
Yeah, nice seeing you again.